Simon, Madeline, welcome. It's great to see you guys.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for inviting us. And sorry we're a bit late. Simon decided to take the scenic route.
Well, a captain is only as good as his navigator.
Uh-oh. Did I not give you decent directions? I know it's hard to find this place. It's a little bit off the beaten track.
Your directions were perfect, Jeff. We just got a little mixed up coming off the interstate. And, of course, it will be a cold day in hell before Simon here stops and asks for directions, even in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, but I told you I could wing it and find my way here.
And here you both are. Well, come on in and shake off the dust. You can freshen up and I'll whip up some of my famous guacamole and a drink or two. We can relax on the porch and catch up as the sun goes down.
Ah, a fiesta in the country. I can't wait. I can feel myself unwinding already.
I'll say. Now there's a way to end a long drive. Ah, what a great way to kick off our weekend in the country.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to some R&R for a long time. I've really needed to recharge the batteries.
Well, I'm glad to be able to offer you a weekend getaway for a break from the rat race. That's why I love being out here so much.
So, how is the big change working out for you? Have you felt much culture shock moving out to the sticks like this?
No, not at all. I grew up in the country, so in a way, this feels more like home to me than the city. In fact, sometimes I felt like a fish out of water in the city. Of course, there are things I miss, but all in all, I'm really happy to be out here in the boondocks.
So you're here full-time now, then?
Well, I still have a little place in the city, but this is where I hang my hat for now.
And how's the writing coming along?
It's great, now. At first, I was really afraid that it wasn't going to pan out, that I'd really made a terrible mistake leaving my job and moving here to write. I had a bad case of writer's block, but then I snapped out of it, and I've actually just finished my manuscript.
Hey, congratulations. Let's have a toast to that.
Yeah, cheers.
And what about the locals? Are you meeting nice people here?
Oh, sure. When I bought the place, I didn't know anyone, of course. I think I stuck out like a sore thumb, too, because everyone knows everyone around here. People always seem to be sizing me up, but giving me the cold shoulder at the same time.
And it must have been rough starting from square one when it came to a social life, too.
Yeah, that was not easy. No one reached out to me except to make small talk.
So, how did you break the ice? If I know you, you put on a big smile and had new friends lined up at your door in no time.
Actually, I had a secret weapon.
A secret weapon? What's that?
You're eating it.
The guacamole?
Hey, I told you it was famous. Around here, at least.
So, you just started handing complete strangers bowls of guacamole? Gee, you'd think that would raise a few eyebrows.
No, of course not. There was actually a good old-fashioned town picnic, so I brought as much of the stuff as I could make. As soon as people started tasting it, I had all sorts of welcomes and invitations to dinner.
So it's true that the fastest way to someone's heart is through their stomach.
And speaking of which, when's dinner?
Whenever we want. We're not on the clock here.
Great, because the sunset is gorgeous. I could sit here all weekend. No lights, no sirens, no honking horns. I could really get used to this.
Yep, this is the life. To take the scenic route.
Jokingly, to get lost and take a long time to reach a destination. Simon and Madeline were supposed to be at Jeff's place by 4, but they took the scenic route and showed up an hour late.
Off the beaten track.
Remote, far away, hard to get to, and not very well known. Jeff bought a house in the country in a small town that very few people have ever heard of. It's really off the beaten track. Notice that you can also say off the beaten path. Jeff's country house is really off the beaten path.
Mixed up.
Confused. When Simon and Madeline were exiting the highway, they got a bit confused about which way to go. They got a bit mixed up.
It will be a cold day in hell before something happens.
It is highly unlikely or improbable that something will happen. Simon hates to stop and ask for directions when he's lost. In fact, he'll never do that. It'll be a cold day in hell before Simon stops and asks directions.
The middle of nowhere.
A very remote place, especially someplace wild and far away from people or towns. Simon and Madeline thought they were very far from any kind of civilization. They thought they were in the middle of nowhere.
To wing it.
To do something without following instructions or directions. To improvise. When Simon realized that they were lost, he decided to follow his instincts and improvise. He decided to wing it.
To shake off the dust.
To rest and compose yourself after a long trip, as if you had been walking for a long time and were covered in dust from the road. Jeff invites Simon and Madeline into his house to relax after such a long trip. He says, "Come in and shake off the dust."
To freshen up.
To wash up and relax. To tidy your appearance and overall condition after something tiring. Simon and Madeline wash their hands and faces, stretch out, and put on comfortable clothes after the long drive. They freshen up after the long drive.
To whip up.
To prepare something, especially food, in a fast and improvised way. Jeff offers to quickly make some snacks. He offers to whip up some guacamole.
To catch up.
To talk and share recent news after not having seen someone in a while. Before dinner, Jeff, Simon, and Madeline tell one another what has been going on in their lives since the last time they were together. They catch up before dinner.
To unwind.
To relax and free yourself from stress. Madeline and Simon have come to the country to relax from the stress of their lives in the city. They are looking forward to unwinding.
To kick off.
To begin something. Drinks, snacks, and conversation are a great way to start a friendly weekend together. That's a great way to kick off the weekend.
R&R.
Rest and relaxation. If you need some rest and relaxation, go spend a weekend in the country. The country is a great place for some R&R.
To recharge the batteries.
To rest and regain physical and psychological strength. Doug has been working too hard lately. He really needs some time away to recharge the batteries.
A weekend getaway.
A place to go for the weekend where you can rest and relax. Albert just bought a little house by the beach. It's not big, but it's a great weekend getaway.
The rat race.
The total system of life centered around working hard, commuting, struggling to be successful and get ahead, dealing with the stresses of life, worrying about bills, etc. Do you ever fantasize about quitting your job and moving to the country, far away from the rat race?
Culture shock.
Reaction to a very significant change in way of life. Moving to another country is very interesting, but it's hard to get used to all of the differences in food, language, and way of thinking. When you move to another country, you can experience culture shock.
The sticks.
The country, a rural area. Joe lives in a small farming community where there are no restaurants, movies, or stores. He really lives in the sticks.
A fish out of water.
Out of place, not in your natural environment. Greg is so used to life in the city that he really feels uncomfortably out of place in small towns. He feels like a fish out of water.
The boondocks.
The country, the rural areas far away from cities or big towns. When Helen went to college, she met a lot of people from big towns and cities who teased her for coming from a tiny rural town. They teased her because she came from the boondocks. Note that this expression is often shortened to the boonies. Helen was teased at college because she comes from the boonies.
A place to hang your hat.
A place to call home. A place to feel at home. Jeremy moved around for so many years, but now he seems to be settled in his new home. He seems to finally have found a place to hang his hat.
To pan out.
To be successful. To work out well. Francis was worried that his plan to move to Seattle and find a new job was not going to be successful. He was worried that his plans were not going to pan out.
To snap out of it.
To recover after a state of confusion, sadness, or psychological fatigue. Harry was depressed for months after he lost his job, but he finally snapped out of it and has been doing much better.
The locals.
The people who live in a certain place. The local people. Jason moved to a new town far away, and he doesn't know any of the people from that town. He hasn't met any of the locals yet.
To stick out like a sore thumb.
To be very visible or obvious. To draw attention to yourself because you are different in some noticeable way. Rob wore a suit on his first day of work, but he quickly realized that the dress code was much more casual. With everyone else in jeans and t-shirts, Rob stuck out like a sore thumb.
To size someone up.
To examine or evaluate someone, especially visually. Doreen was very shy around her new babysitter. She didn't say anything, but instead just stood on the other side of the room, sizing the new babysitter up.
To give someone the cold shoulder.
To fail to be warm and welcoming to someone. To ignore someone, especially on purpose. Dennis complained that his new co-workers were intentionally unfriendly and unwelcoming. He felt that everyone was giving him the cold shoulder.
To start from square one.
To start again. To start a process from the very beginning. After the fire destroyed their house and all of their belongings, the Myers had to start from square one.
To reach out.
To extend a welcome to a person. To put forth an effort to communicate with someone. If you want to make new friends, you have to find a way to reach out and talk to people.
To make small talk.
To make insignificant conversation with someone, especially only to be polite. Whenever Stan goes to the post office, he talks with the other people standing in line about inconsequential things, like the weather. He makes small talk with the people standing in line with him.
To break the ice.
To put an end to a time of silence or lack of communication. To initiate a conversation or friendliness with someone. Whenever Troy goes to parties, he tries to start a conversation so that people can feel more comfortable together. He tries to break the ice with a conversation.
Lined up at your door.
Eager and in large numbers. Marcy is such a great cook that people are always very eager to be invited to her house for dinner. Whenever Marcy hosts a dinner party, people are lined up at her door.
To raise eyebrows.
To bring attention to yourself. To cause people to notice you as someone different or unconventional. Notice that this expression is similar to stick out like a sore thumb, but there's a hint of moral judgment with raise eyebrows. Hannah lives in a very small and conservative town, but she dresses in fashionable and showy clothing. Hannah's clothes raise eyebrows in the small town where she lives.
Good old-fashioned.
Traditional. For the 4th of July, our town organizes a good old-fashioned town fair with fireworks display.
On the clock.
On a strict schedule, especially on working time. Jake is a security guard at a jewelry store. and he always wears his uniform when he's on the clock.